Tonight, in a snowy old bookshop in Montague, the street goes quiet while a wood stove ticks softly in warm lamplight. This is a calm sleep story for adults, told in a gentle, unhurried voice to help you settle and drift. Let yourself set everything down and come home to rest. You arrive the way you do when the day has been long enough without hurry, without needing to explain anything to anyone. The night has already done some of the work for you. Snow lies in soft layers along the curb, on mailbox tops, on the shoulders of bare shrubs, and it makes the street feel quieter than usual, as if every sound has agreed to speak in a lower voice. A small light glows ahead, warm and steady. It isn't bright in a flashy way. It's the kind of light that belongs behind older glass, the kind that looks like it was switched on with care. You walk toward it, your footsteps making the faintest crunch, and you can feel the cold on your cheeks in a clean, simple way. It's the kind of cold that makes you aware of your own breath, and that's a good place to begin. Before you even reach the door, you let your shoulders drop a fraction. You don't have to hold the whole day up anymore. Take a slow breath in through your nose, gentle and easy. And then let that breath go, long and unhurried, as if you're fogging a window just to watch it fade. The storefront window looks a little wavy, as if it's been watching winters come and go for a long time. Books make calm shapes behind the glass, tall spines, short stacks, a few covers turned outward like quiet invitations. A narrow sign hangs from a bracket, and it sways almost imperceptibly when a breeze slides by. The rest of the street seems content to stand still. You reach the door and take the handle in your gloved hand. The metal is cold, but not unfriendly. It's simply telling you the truth about the weather outside. When you pull, the door gives with a soft, familiar resistance, and a small chime answers in a clear, gentle note. Warmth meets you right away. Not a blast, not a rush, just a steady, lived-in heat that feels like it's been waiting patiently. You step inside and let the door close behind you. The sound is muted, cushioned by wood and books and winter air held at bay. A wood stove sits off to one side, dark iron and quietly competent. It doesn't roar, it just keeps itself going. Now and then it makes a small ticking sound as the metal warms and settles, like a clock that measures comfort instead of time. The scent in here is paper, dust in the best sense, and a hint of wood smoke that clings to the edges of everything in a way that feels reassuring. You stand for a moment on the entry mat, letting your eyes adjust. The light inside is amber and gentle. It comes from a few lamps placed with intention near a reading chair, above the counter, beside a narrow aisle where the shelves rise tall. The ceiling is higher than you expected, with beams that look hand-worn, and there's a softness to the room that makes you instinctively lower your voice, even though you haven't said a word yet. This is where you can set things down. You start with the simple, physical kind. You slip your gloves off and tuck them into a pocket. You unwind your scarf, feeling the faint scratch of wool, and you hang it on a row of hooks by the door. Your coat follows heavy, winter thick, and the moment it leaves your shoulders, you notice the quiet relief in your neck and upper back. Then you set down the other kind of weight, the kind you can't hang on a hook. You don't have to name it. You can just let it loosen. Take another easy breath in. Let it fill your chest without forcing it. And as you breathe out, imagine you're setting a small bundle on the floor beside you, not throwing it away, just placing it down for now, right here, where you don't have to carry it. The floor beneath your boots is made of wide wooden planks, worn smooth in the paths people walk most often. When you shift your weight, it gives a small creak, friendly, familiar, like the building is acknowledging you. Somewhere deeper in the shop, a page turns. The sound is crisp and soft at once, like a leaf being folded. You take a few steps forward, slow enough to feel the warmth change as you move away from the door. The air closer to the stove is gently warmer, and you catch a quiet shimmer in the glass of a framed print on the wall, something sketched in dark lines, maybe a landscape, maybe just a pattern. It isn't asking you to focus. It's simply part of the calm. A counter sits near the middle of the room, with a lamp that has a shaded top, casting a pool of light onto a surface worn at the edges. There are paper bags folded neatly, a small stack of bookmarks, and a jar holding a handful of pencils. Everything looks arranged, but not strict. It feels like someone has been caring for this place in small, steady ways. You notice, too, the quiet sense of being recognized not by name, not by anything you have to perform, but by the simple fact that you've arrived. In a place like this, arrival is enough. The room seems to understand what it means to come in from the cold. You walk down the first aisle, letting your fingers hover near the spines without touching. The titles are there if you want them, but you don't need to read anything right now. The print on the spines, the varied textures of cloth and paper and glossy jackets, the tiny differences in height, these are comforting details that don't demand anything from you. Outside, through the front window, the snow keeps falling in the slowest way. The street lamp's light turns it into drifting specks, and you can barely hear the world out there. A car passes at some point, but the sound is softened, as if the snow has wrapped the tires in felt. Inside, the stove ticks again. A shelf creaks faintly as the building settles, and you realize you've already slowed down without trying. You reach the back of the aisle and find a small open space with a chair and a low table, as if someone has made a quiet corner on purpose. The chair's arms look a little worn, and the cushion has the faint impression of many evenings. You don't sit yet. You just stand nearby, feeling the difference between cold outside and warmth inside, between the day you carried and the quiet that has been waiting here. For now, you're simply here. You've stepped into shelter. You've let the door close on the wind, and that's enough to begin the night. The longer you stand inside, the more the details settle into place, like a room slowly coming into focus. The air is comfortably warm, warm enough that your fingertips begin to feel fully yours again, warm enough that the edges of the cold soften and let go. Outside, it's the kind of late December cold that makes snow squeak underfoot, but in here, the heat has a patient steadiness that reaches you in layers. A faint draft lingers near the front door, as it should, but it never gets past the first few feet. The shop holds itself together against winter with thick walls and older windows, and you can feel how the building has learned to do this over time. The glass in the front panes is slightly uneven, catching the lamplight in a gentle ripple. Every now and then, the window gives the tiniest tick, as if responding to the temperature outside. The chime above the door is still, now that you've entered. The quiet returns quickly, after even a small sound here, like the shelves and rugs and books are all working together to keep things soft. You walk a little farther in, following the glow from one lamp to the next. Each pool of light seems placed to guide you without directing you. The bulbs are warm-toned, the kind that make wood look honey-colored and make the corners of the room feel friendly instead of empty. Shadows aren't dark here. They're just gentle. Along one wall, built-in shelves rise nearly to the ceiling. A rolling ladder rests on a rail, its wood polished by countless hands. The ladder doesn't move, but the mere sight of it suggests a calm rhythm. Reach, slide, choose, return. Above the highest shelves, the ceiling opens into beams that look hand-hewn, and you can see the grain in the wood, darker where time has settled into it. The stove sits in its corner like a quiet companion. It's not the center of attention, yet everything seems to benefit from it. The metal gives another soft tick. Somewhere inside, a log shifts almost inaudibly, and the warmth feels just a shade deeper. The scent that rises from it isn't heavy. It's clean wood and the faintest thread of smoke, mixed with paper and the old sweetness of cardboard boxes stored in back rooms. Your boots make a muted sound on the floorboards, cushioned by a worn rug that lies in the main walkway. The rug's pattern has faded into something more like a suggestion than a design, but its softness underfoot is clear. When you step off it, the wood feels cool for a beat, and then warm again as the heat in the room reaches it. This place has the texture of a small New England town that knows winter well, practical, old-fashioned, in a comforting way, built to hold warmth and to make the dark months feel less sharp. You don't need to say that out loud. You can feel it in the way the door closes, in the way the lights are chosen, in the way the shelves don't wobble when you pass. Near the counter, there's a small bowl holding a few wrapped candies. A hand-lettered note sits beside it, simple and friendly. The ink looks slightly faded, as if it's been there for a while, but the message feels current, like someone thought, today, that it would be nice if you felt welcomed. A little farther back, you notice a narrow table with a stack of paper bags folded flat, a roll of tape, and a few bookmarks fanned out like playing cards. There's a softness, even in the practical tools here. Nothing looks rushed. Nothing looks like it needs to be done right now. From somewhere in the shop, a chair shifts with a quiet wooden sigh. You don't see who's back there yet, but you can sense the presence of another person in the gentle way the room makes space for more than one set of footsteps. It feels natural, like a familiar kind of company that doesn't require conversation to be real. Outside, the snow continues to fall, and the street beyond the window is nearly still. The light from a lamppost makes a pale cone on the sidewalk, and the flakes drift through it as if they're taking their time. You can barely make out the outlines of buildings across the way, simple facades, dark windows, a few porch lights left on. Everything looks softened by winter. You find yourself listening to the smallest sounds, because there's room to hear them here. The stove's tick is steady. The building has its own quiet, settling a faint creak from a beam, a soft pop from a cooling pipe somewhere out of sight. The floorboards speak when you step, but they never complain. They just let you know you're moving through a real place with a real history. In Montague, the night outside can feel deeply quiet in winter, especially when snow covers the ground. It's a quiet that doesn't feel empty. It feels held. The shop seems to mirror that feeling, holding quiet on the inside, too, and offering it back to you in a warmer form. You walk down another aisle, letting the shelves guide your pace. Here, the books are arranged in broad, sensible sections. Some shelves are tidy and even, others a touch more relaxed, with a book leaned sideways or a stack that has grown into its own shape. The spines are a mix of colors, faded reds, deep greens, pale blues, and the soft tan of older paper. A few titles catch your eye, but you don't have to pick anything up. At the end of the aisle, a small window looks out toward the back, and the glass has a thin halo of frost around the edges. The center remains clear enough to see the dark shapes outside, snow piled on a railing, maybe, and the suggestion of a walkway leading to another door. The frost makes a delicate pattern, like lace drawn by the cold. Inside, the warmth keeps it from spreading. You lift a hand and rest your fingertips briefly on the window frame. The wood is smooth, worn down by time and touch. It feels solid and steady, like an old banister. You can imagine how many evenings have been spent in this room, people coming in from the cold, brushing snow from their sleeves, shaking out scarves, finding a corner of light, and letting the world slow down. A lamp nearby hums with a quiet electrical life. Its shade is the color of old parchment, and it casts a circle of light that makes the nearby shelf look especially inviting. The air in that circle feels just a touch warmer, as if light itself can be a kind of heat. You notice your breathing again, not because you're trying to change it, but because the room makes it easy to feel. The breath you take in feels a little warmer than it did outside. The breath you let out seems to drift away more slowly, as if even your exhale is learning how to rest here. Somewhere behind you, a footstep pauses, and the page turning stops for a moment, as if the other person has noticed you in the gentlest way. There's no pressure to speak. There's only the quiet acknowledgement that you're not alone in the world, and that this kind of company can be soft. The snow outside keeps falling. The stove ticks on. The shop holds its warm pockets of lamplight, its slow aisles, its steady wood and paper and quiet. And you find yourself fully inside the scene now, warm enough, sheltered enough, grounded enough to let the rest of the night unfold at its own pace. You stand where you are for another breath or two, letting your body catch up with the quiet your mind has already begun to notice. Your feet feel solid on the wide wooden boards, the soles of your boots touching down in a way that seems more deliberate now that you are no longer crossing a parking lot or stepping around patches of ice. Here, the floor is dry, faintly warm, and faintly uneven, the boards dipping and rising by the smallest degrees. You can sense it through the firm padding of your boots, a gentle reminder that this building has been here long enough to settle into the earth. Your shoulders remember the day for a moment, how they crept up toward your ears without you noticing. You roll them back once, slowly, feeling the fabric of your sweater move against your shirt, a soft slide of cotton against wool. The motion is quiet but definite, like loosening a knot. As your shoulders settle lower, you discover a bit more room to breathe. You slip your scarf the rest of the way off and hang it on one of the hooks by the door, the knit fabric dragging a little against your fingers. The weight of it leaves your neck, and suddenly the air on your skin feels pleasantly mild instead of cold or overheated. You sit on the bench for a moment to unlace your boots, fingers working the slightly stiff laces, tugging each knot loose. Leather bends under your touch, creasing with a familiar resistance. When you step out of your boots and place them neatly by the mat, your sock-covered feet touch the boards directly. The wood is smooth and cool, but not chilly, just enough temperature difference that you notice it, and then it begins to warm under your weight. Your toes spread a little, grateful to be free of the press of winter shoes. You stand there, quietly rooted, feeling the contact between you and this old floor as the stove ticks softly in the distance. From the back of the shop, your friend lifts their head and offers a gentle smile. "Take your time," they say in an easy murmur, voice low enough to fit the room. "I just put water on for tea." If 5. The thought of something warm between your hands makes your fingers tingle in anticipation. You move slowly down the aisle toward the back, passing between shelves that now feel like tall, friendly shoulders on either side of you. Your sweater brushes lightly against their edges when you pass close, the yarn catching for just a second on a protruding corner before falling free again. The small tea station sits on a narrow counter near the stove, where the heat can help keep the water hot. A simple electric kettle rests there, its metal sides humming faintly as it finishes its work. Beside it, a row of mismatched mugs waits, their shapes rounded and comforting. You run a finger along the nearest handle, feeling the slight ripple where the glaze pooled thicker, the tiny bump where a thumb might rest. Your friend gestures toward a tin. Chamomile, if you want to really unwind, they say, or there's a few others in there. Dejected. Chamomile sounds right tonight, especially in a room already leaning toward sleep. You open the tin, and the gentle scent of dried flowers rises to meet you, soft, a little sweet, with a hint of meadow you can almost imagine despite the snow outside. A thin slice of apple sits in a small dish nearby, pale and crisp, the edge already catching a bit of the room's air. The combination feels simple and kind. A quiet cup with a piece of fruit, chosen with care rather than ceremony. You place a tea bag in one of the mugs and set the apple slice carefully on the saucer, watching the way the kettle's steam curls up and across your knuckles as you pour. The water flows in a clear stream that mists the inside of the cup, then deepens as it meets the herbs, turning a warm, golden color. The mug is only warm at first, surface heat on the outside, but as you cradle it in both hands, the warmth begins to soak into your skin, radiating outward through your palms and into your fingers. Your friend moves a chair a little closer to the stove with a quiet scrape of wood on wood, then pulls another closer for themselves. You settle into the offered seat, the cushion underneath shaped by many hours of reading, with a slight dip that guides your hips into place. The fabric is soft, a bit worn, and it gives just enough to feel like it belongs to you for the moment. You rest your mug on your knee, one hand cupped around its base, the other wrapped around the handle. The ceramic surface is smooth and solid, grounding in a way that reaches past thought. The rising steam strokes your face with a faint, herbal warmth, brushing the tip of your nose and your cheeks. When you lift the cup for a first sip, the rim meets your lips in a steady, familiar line. The tea is still a little too hot, so you just let the warmth touch the sensitive skin there before you lower it again. Long day? Your friend asks quietly, not pushing, just opening a door if you feel like stepping through. You give a small nod, watching your thumb trace a slow circle along the side of the mug. The texture of the glaze is almost glassy, but there's a tiny roughness at the bottom where the mug was trimmed. You let your thumb find that spot again and again, like a small, soothing loop. Your friend murmurs, as if that nod told them everything they need to know. You're here now. That's the important part. 2. The two of you fall into an easy silence. The quiet doesn't feel empty. It feels padded, filled with the tick of the stove and the faint whisper of snow at the windows. Your eyes drift to your lap, where your hands hold the mug steady. You notice the way tendons shift under the skin when you adjust your grip, the small flex of muscle when you lift the cup and lower it again. Each motion is deliberate and slow, like you're learning the shape of your own evening. You take another sip when the tea has cooled just enough, and this time the warmth moves into your mouth, sliding down your throat and expanding gently in your chest. The chamomile is delicate and soothing, and the thin slice of apple resting on the saucer adds a faint fruit sweetness when you pick it up and let it rest on your tongue. The cool crispness of the apple contrasts with the heat of the tea, and the combination makes you more aware of the exact path each sensation takes through your body. Your shoulders ease a little more with each swallow. The muscles along your back soften, and the curve of the chair catches you in all the right places. The fabric of your sweater feels thicker now, a soft barrier between you and the room's cooler pockets of air. But the skin of your forearms, where your sleeves ride up a little, can still sense the gentle difference in temperature. When you inhale, you feel your ribs expand against the knit, and when you exhale, the sweater settles back against you in a slow, comfortable press. The sounds in the room grow even smaller as your awareness turns inward. The stove ticks, but not as often. The building seems to breathe with you, the old wood stretching and relaxing in the heat. Your friend occasionally turns a page in whatever they're reading, the faint, raspy slide of paper carrying across the short distance. Somewhere near the front, the radiator gives a soft hiss and then quiets, satisfied with its work. You rest your heel on the edge of one floorboard, noticing how it dips just a hair when you lean your weight into it. The board answers with the tiniest creak, a sound so mild it feels more like a greeting than a complaint. You shift your toes slowly inside your socks, spreading them and then curling them again, feeling the weave of the fabric move across your skin. As your body settles, you find your breath doing the same. In through your nose, the air cool and faintly scented with herbs and wood. Out through your mouth or nose, whichever feels easier in the moment, the breath leaving a fraction slower than it came in. You're not trying to control anything now. You're just noticing the warmth in your hands, the gentle stretch of your shoulders, the light weight of the mug, the way the chair's cushion cradles you. All of it adds up to a sense of being fully here, in this room, in this moment. Nothing else required of you. After a while, your mug is more empty than full, and the tea has cooled to a gentle warmth that no longer rises in little clouds of steam. You set the cup on a low table beside your chair, letting your fingers rest on the handle for one last moment before you ease your hand away. Your friend looks up from their reading, offering another quiet smile. "Feel like stretching your legs?" they ask. "You can wander. I'll be right here." Inez. You nod, your body agreeing before your mind has quite formed words. Standing again, you feel the outline of the chair lingering against your back for a second, like a memory of support. Your socked feet find the floorboards by feel, toes lightly gripping the smooth wood as you begin to move. The room seems to expand once more as you step away from the pool of warmth by the stove and into the softer, layered light between shelves. You start down one of the side aisles, fingers trailing along the nearest row of spines. They meet your touch in a variety of textures: matte, glossy, cloth-bound, smooth, ridged. Some covers give easily under your fingertips, bending inward just a little, while others stand firm and unyielding. The titles blur together, not because they are uninteresting, but because your attention is less on the words and more on the feel of moving slowly through this space. At the end of the aisle, the shelves open into a small clearing near the front of the shop. Here, a couple of upholstered chairs sit angled toward the windows, their backs toward the center of the room. Between them, a simple wooden side table holds a lamp with a fabric shade and a small dish of those wrapped candies. You pick one up, noticing the crinkle of foil between your fingers, then decide to set it back for now, listening to the light sound it makes as it settles. On the wall behind the chairs, just above eye level, hangs a framed family photograph. It's not large, just big enough to be noticed if you're moving slowly, easy to miss if you're rushing in to grab a book and dash out again. The frame is dark wood, edges rubbed a little lighter at the corners where it's been handled over the years. Its surface has a soft sheen rather than a hard shine. You step a little closer, drawn by the way the lamplight catches on the glass. The photo inside shows a small group standing in front of what might be this very building in another season. No snow, just bare trees and a clear sky. Faces mingle ages. An older pair in the middle, younger adults, and perhaps a child or two gathered around. Their expressions are gentle, some smiling outright, others with that steady, calm look people wear when they're simply comfortable where they are. The image is slightly softened by time, the colors fading just enough that there's a hint of sepia at the edges. A tiny speck of dust clings to the inside of the glass in one corner, something you wouldn't notice unless you stood just where you are now, close enough to see the small imperfections that make it real. For a moment, you imagine the smoothness of the frame under your hand, the cool glass beneath your fingertips, but you leave it undisturbed, letting it remain exactly where it is, watching over this little seating area and whoever happens to pause here. You turn toward the front counter, where the practical heart of the shop beats quietly. The wood of the countertop is worn satin smooth by years of elbows resting, hands leaning, books being slid across. A small bell sits near the edge, not the loud kind that demands attention, but a modest one, its metal surface dulled by use. Near it lies an open notebook with careful handwriting marching across the page, today's notes, perhaps, or a list of special orders. Laid beside the notebook, parallel to its spine, is an antique fountain pen. It rests on a narrow strip of fabric that keeps it from rolling, the cloth faintly indented under its weight. The pen's body is dark, with a depth of color that shifts between black and deep green when it catches the light. Closer to the nib, the metal trim glints softly, not flashy but precise. You find yourself studying it, the slender line it draws just by being there. The cap bears the faint marks of use, tiny scratches that you can trace with your eyes, even if you don't touch. The clip is slightly out of perfect alignment, as if it has been hooked onto thick sweaters and thin shirts and the edges of notebook covers over many seasons. If you were to pick it up, you imagine the cool weight in your hand, the balance of metal and ink, the way your fingers would naturally find a grip just above the nib. For a heartbeat or two, the world narrows to that small, still life, notebook, pen, quiet, lamp, the grain of the countertop. Then your awareness widens again, taking in the rest of the room. The stove ticks once behind you, a single, soft sound that seems to mark the moment. Somewhere high on the wall, a simple clock adds its own gentle rhythm, its hands sliding forward with barely audible ticks. They don't cut through the room, they blend with it, a slow, steady count of seconds that doesn't ask for attention unless you choose to listen. You let yourself listen now, just for a short while, noticing how each tiny tick fits between breaths, how the silence between them feels padded by snow outside and the resting hush of bookshelves. When you move again, it's with the feeling that you've been given permission to wander. Your friend remains by the stove, a calm presence in your peripheral awareness, while you drift along the aisles like someone walking through a familiar dream. You pass a shelf marked Local History, where soft-cover volumes lean against one another, stories of mills and rivers and small-town winters, their covers showing black and white photos of streets that look much like the one outside tonight. At one lower shelf, you notice a short row of older paperbacks whose order is just slightly off. The labels on their spines share the same style, but the titles don't quite follow the alphabet in a neat line. An S appears before an M. A P has drifted down past a R. The disarray is minor, the kind only someone moving slowly would see. You crouch to take a closer look, feeling your knees bend and the stretch of fabric across the tops of your legs. The floorboard here slopes just a bit under your weight, and your fingertips rest lightly on the shelf edge as you balance. The air at this level smells more strongly of paper and a faint trace of dust, the scent of pages that have been waiting patiently. From across the room, your friend's voice reaches you in a soft, amused tone. "That little section has been wanting some care," they say. "If you ever feel like alphabetizing a shelf, that's a good candidate." Duark. You smile, tracing one spine with the pad of your finger. The cover is smooth, the edges a little feathered from handling. It's an easy task to picture, picking up each book, reading the title, sliding it into its proper place, watching the row come into order. There's no urgency to it. The shelf has been this way for who knows how long. It can wait for you, the same way this room has. You straighten slowly, feeling the strength in your legs as you rise, hands brushing softly against your thighs to steady you. As you stand, your gaze catches the framed photograph again in the distance, and then the gleam of the fountain pen by the counter. The two small details seem to hold the room together in a quiet way, one anchored in memory on the wall, the other resting by the day's notes on the counter, both watching over the evening without asking anything from you. A car passes over the bridge outside, its tires whispering on the packed snow. Headlights slip briefly across the higher windows, soft streaks of light that glide over the beams and vanish. Then the town settles back into its usual winter hush. The snow-muffled street goes on doing what it does best, keeping the world down to a soft murmur while you stand here, bare feet in warm socks on the old boards, surrounded by shelves and small, patient objects that seem content simply to exist. You find yourself breathing in time with the room again, each inhale bringing the faint sense of wood, paper, and cooling tea, each exhale smoothing out a little more of the day's leftover tension. As you drift from shelf to shelf, the bookshop becomes less a place you're visiting and more a space that is gently, steadily holding you, with its photograph on the wall, its pen by the counter, its ticking clock, and the steady quiet of snow beyond the glass. You drift back toward the corner where that slightly disordered shelf waits, the one where a few titles had slipped out of place. Now that you've wandered the room, the small invitation your friend voiced earlier lingers near the edge of your attention. It isn't a demand, just a gentle suggestion. If you feel like alphabetizing a shelf, this would be a good candidate. The air changes almost imperceptibly as you move away from the stove's deeper warmth and into the cooler, book-scented space between the cases. Your socks move soundlessly across the boards, the faint texture of the grain pressing up into your heels and the balls of your feet. You find the shelf without looking for the sign on its end. Your body remembers where it is, 3 steps past the local history section and a little to the left. Here, the books sit shouldered together in a single, short row, paperbacks and a few smaller hardcovers, their spines a line of faded colors and softened fonts. None of them are in real disarray. They've just drifted a little, an out-of-order letter here, a title that has migrated one space down the line there. It's the kind of small untidiness that only becomes visible when you're moving slowly enough to see individual details. You lower yourself into a crouch again, knees folding, the fabric of your pants stretching gently over your legs. One hand rests lightly on the edge of the shelf, steadying you as you lean closer. The wood under your fingers feels slightly cooler than the air, its surface worn smooth where other hands have done the same. There's no list to consult, No system beyond the simple alphabet printed on the spines. That's part of what makes the task so inviting. You reach for the first book on the left, thumb sliding down the spine to find the title. The cover yields under your fingers with a soft give, pages shifting inside with a whisper. You read the first letter of the title silently, letting it form clearly in your mind. A. You place the book gently on the floor in front of the shelf, starting a new row, the edge of the cover making a small, cardboard sound as it meets the board. The next book comes out with a faint sigh of pages sliding against each other. Its title begins with C, so you set it a little to the right of the first on the floor. Another starts with B, and you nestle it between the two, nudging each gently until they form a simple line. You fall into a rhythm that asks very little of you beyond attention. One book at a time. Pick up, read the first letter, maybe the second if you need it. Place on the floor, scoot the growing row minutely to make room. The movements are small and repetitive, soothing in their predictability. As you work, the quiet of the shop gathers closely around you. You can hear your friend turning pages somewhere behind you, the soft rasp of paper that doesn't rush or pause for long. The stove ticks now and then, but more slowly, as if it, too, has settled. From the front of the shop comes the occasional faint hiss of the radiator beneath the window, a reminder that outside, the cold is steady and real. Your fingers begin to recognize the different textures of the books without needing to look. Older paperbacks feel almost velvety, their covers softened by years of handling. Newer ones are slicker, the glossy coating a little cooler against your skin. Hardcovers have a firmer presence, the cloth or paper over their boards offering a different kind of resistance when you grip them. You notice small details that would have escaped you in a busier mood. A tiny crease along the bottom edge of one cover, as if it had once been tucked into a bag with a lunch and a notebook. A faint coffee ring ghosted onto the back of another, a penciled price erased halfway from the corner of an inside page, still faintly visible if you tilt the book toward the lamplight. The line on the floor grows longer, a quiet parade of stories waiting to return home in a slightly different order. You don't worry about getting it perfect on the first pass. If two titles that begin with the same letter end up out of sequence, you simply shift them later, letting the books slide gently against each other until the line feels right. There is no rush. The shelf will be here whether you finish in 10 minutes or 30. You pause now and then to let your knees straighten and your back lengthen, rising part way to ease the soft pull in your legs. When you do, your gaze lifts and catches small, familiar details at a different height. The framed photograph on the wall, for instance, sits at just about eye level from where you stand, its quiet group of faces still gathered in a moment of another season. On the counter, the pen beside the notebook glints faintly in the lamplight, still resting exactly where you last noticed it. Then you fold back down, knees bending, hands returning to their simple work. Book after book, letter after letter, the repetition becomes almost like a physical lullaby. Small motions, predictable in their pattern, each one bringing a quiet satisfaction as another title finds its place. When you've emptied the section, the shelf itself looks temporarily bare, a light dusting of fine particles visible where the books shielded the wood from everyday air. You run the side of your hand along it lightly, not to scrub, just to smooth. The dust shifts in tiny clouds, barely visible, and then settles again as you lift your hand away. Now comes the part that feels most like bringing order from nothing. You take the first book from the floor, the one whose title begins closest to A, and slide it onto the left side of the shelf. The sound it makes is soft but clear, a thin, cardboard rasp as it passes over the wood and comes to rest against the side panel. The next book follows, and the next after that, each one finding a narrow strip of space, each one leaning into the last until the row begins to take shape again. You adjust the spacing with the heel of your hand now and then, nudging the entire row a fraction of an inch to the right or left so that no single book juts out too far. At some point, your friend's footsteps approach, the boards creaking lightly under their weight. They stop a respectful distance away, giving you room to finish. "That already looks happier," they say, softly. You glance up and see the shelf halfway refilled, the titles lining up in a more orderly progression now. But the feeling of happiness isn't in the books themselves. It's in the way your body responds to the steady, unhurried task. Your breathing has grown slow and deep without any effort, rising and falling in time with the small motions of your hands. "Almost there," you reply, though you don't need to say anything at all. The work speaks for itself. You place the last few books with particular care, watching the line on the shelf fill out until every space is accounted for. The row stands straight, not perfectly rigid but gently arranged, like people settling together on a bench. The letters on the spines progress in quiet order now, no longer skipping back or forward unexpectedly. When you've finished, you rest your fingertips lightly on the tops of the books, feeling the faint give of the covers beneath the surface. You're not checking or correcting anything. You're simply marking the end of the task with a small, tactile acknowledgement. Done. Not important in any grand way, but complete in this small corner of the world. You rise slowly from your crouch, using the edge of the shelf to help you unfold. Your knees straighten, your back stretches, and a little warmth flows down your legs as blood shifts with the change in position. When you're standing again, you take one small step back, looking at the shelf from a little distance. The change is modest, almost invisible to someone who hadn't seen it before, but you can feel it in the way your body responds, a soft, internal yes that doesn't need words. Something now rests more easily in the room, and in you. Your friend gives a small nod, as if agreeing with the unspoken feeling. "Thank you," they say gently. "That's one of those things that's never urgent, but it always feels better afterward." You brush your hands lightly together, though there's almost no dust on them, and rest one palm briefly on the end of the shelf. The wood is familiar now, the temperature of the room having soaked into it. When you turn toward the rest of the shop, the light seems just a touch warmer, the quiet a shade deeper, as though this simple act of putting things in order has smoothed a few edges you didn't even realize were rough. The clock on the wall ticks on, nearly hidden in the background, its small hands moving steadily forward. Outside, the snow continues its soft work, thickening the quiet of the street. Inside, in this carefully tended room, you've done your own small work, and the sense of gentle completion follows you as you head toward the back, where another kind of warmth is waiting. Your friend falls into step beside you as you make your way toward the rear of the shop, the two of you moving in companionable silence. The air grows slightly warmer again as you pass near the stove, then cools a little as you turn down a narrow hallway that leads to the back rooms. Here, the light is different, less filtered by lamps and more practical, coming from a single fixture in the ceiling, its glow softened by a simple shade. At the end of the hall, a doorway opens into a small kitchen tucked behind the shop. It isn't large, just enough space for a compact table, a couple of chairs, and the usual collection of cupboards and appliances. The floor is covered in linoleum patterned with gentle squares, worn smooth in the paths people take most often, from the sink to the stove, from the stove to the table, from the fridge back to the doorway. The refrigerator hums softly in the corner, a steady, low sound that underlines the quiet rather than interrupting it. Magnets of all shapes and colors dot its front, small rectangles from local events, a few with faded photos, one shaped like a book, another like a tiny bluebird. A handwritten note is held in place under one magnet, a simple list of things to pick up next time: tea, dish soap, paper towels. Your friend moves to the counter without needing to think, their hands finding what they need by memory. A kettle waits near the sink, its handle slightly worn where fingers have curled around it countless times. They fill it from the tap, the rush of water briefly louder than anything else in the room, then set it onto the stovetop. The burner clicks softly as it turns on, followed by the gentle rise of heat that begins to move through the metal. "Chamomile again?" they ask, glancing at you. "We've got plenty." You nod, feeling your shoulders loosen another notch at the thought. Chamomile feels right for this hour, and for the snow that waits outside. A small jar of tea bags sits on the counter, labeled in careful handwriting. Beside it, a round basket holds a few apples with red and gold skins, one of them slightly flattened on one side where it has rested against the others. Your friend picks that one up, weighing it in their hand for a second before placing it on a wooden cutting board. The knife that comes next is familiar and unpretentious, its handle molded to fit a palm comfortably. You watch as they cut the apple in half, then into thin slices, each one landing on the board with a soft, clean sound. The crisp scent of fresh fruit reaches you, a cool brightness that lifts the warm air of the room. "Would you grab the mugs?" they murmur. You nod and open a cabinet above the counter. Inside, a row of mismatched mugs waits, many of them with small chips along the rims or faded designs that hint at past gifts or thrift store finds. You choose two that feel good in your hands, solid, rounded shapes that fit your fingers easily. One has a muted pattern of stripes along the bottom. The other is simply glazed in a soft, warm color, the shade of late afternoon sun. You set the mugs on the counter near the stove, close enough that they'll warm a little from the rising heat. The kettle begins to murmur, a low, building sound that blends with the fridge's hum and the faint tick of the heating system somewhere in the walls. The whole kitchen seems to breathe around these small noises, the kind of background sounds that are invisible in the day but gentle and noticeable now. Your friend drops a tea bag into each mug, the paper tags hanging over the rims by their strings. They lay a thin slice of apple on the bottom of each cup as well, the pale flesh resting against the ceramic. For a moment, the slices look almost like small moons at the bottom of a pond. The kettle reaches its soft boil, steam escaping from the spout in a steady column. Your friend lifts it carefully, using a folded towel to protect their hand from the heat of the handle. You watch as the water pours into the mugs, first clear, then clouding as it meets the tea and the waiting apple slices. Tiny bubbles cling to the edges of the fruit for a moment before rising and breaking. The scent of chamomile spreads through the kitchen as the tea steeps, floral and gentle, with a sweetness that mixes easily with the sharper perfume of the apple. You can feel the aroma in your nose and throat, not heavy, just persistent enough to invite a deeper breath. You both wait without impatience, letting the tea take its time. The strings of the tea bags drift lazily in the cups. The tags bump softly against the sides. Your friend leans one hip against the counter, arms loosely crossed, as they watch the mugs along with you. No one feels the need to fill the space with talk. The water has its own conversation, steam curling up toward the ceiling in slow, translucent spirals that fade into the air. When the tea has deepened into a warm, golden hue, your friend gently lifts each bag and presses it lightly against the side of the mug with the back of a spoon, just enough to coax out the last bit of flavor. The bags go into a small bowl by the sink to be carried out to the compost later. You watch the apple slices float slightly now, their edges softening, their color growing a bit more translucent as the heat works through them. "You want to sit?" they ask, nodding toward the small table. You pick up your mug with both hands, the heat soaking into your palms the instant you touch it. The ceramic is almost too warm at first, but your fingers adjust, finding a comfortable hold around the curve of the cup. The steam rises directly into your face as you turn toward the table, gently fogging your view for a heartbeat before drifting away. The table is plain wood, the surface showing faint rings and faint scratches from years of cups and plates and the occasional dropped utensil. 2 chairs sit opposite each other, but tonight you choose the one that lets you face the doorway back into the shop, where you can see a slice of lamplight beyond. Your friend takes the other chair, setting their mug down with a soft clink. You rest your elbows lightly on the table, curling your hands more fully around the cup. The warmth is steady now, radiating through your skin and into your wrists. You can feel it reaching farther, up into your forearms and down into your fingers, easing any lingering stiffness from the earlier shelving. You bring the cup toward your face, eyes closing for a moment as you inhale. The scent is richer now, the chamomile and apple fully mingled into something that feels both herbal and gently fruity. There's a faint sweetness, even before you taste it, and a sense of softness that seems to wrap around the back of your throat. Your first sip is small, cautious, testing the temperature. The liquid rolls across your tongue, warm but no longer too hot, carrying with it the mellow, floral taste of the tea and the subtle, bright note of apple. You let it linger for a second before swallowing, feeling the warmth travel down into your chest, spreading there like a gentle light. Outside this small room, the wind brushes against the building, a muted, soft sound you can just make out from here. Inside, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the heater, and the occasional, distant creak of the shop's wooden beams blend into a quiet backdrop that makes each sip feel even more deliberate. Another sip, a little larger this time. Your shoulders drop another fraction of an inch as the warmth settles deeper. The chair cradles your lower back, its simple curve fitting your shape as if it has been waiting for you. The edge of the table under your forearms is smooth, the varnish worn to a satiny softness where hands and elbows have rested over the years. Your friend wraps their own hands around their mug, mirroring your posture. They smile without hurry. "This is my favorite part of the day," they say in a low voice. "When everything's done, and there's nothing left except a quiet cup in here." You nod, understanding. The micro-task is finished, the books in gentle order, the shop resting just beyond the doorway. There are no more to-dos tugging at your attention, no unfinished pieces of the evening asking for energy. All that remains is the simple act of drinking this tea, one slow mouthful at a time. You take another sip, and this time you notice the way the apple slice presses lightly against your lips as the cup tilts. You catch it gently between your teeth, letting the softened fruit rest on your tongue. The taste is mild and sweet, infused with the chamomile, its texture tender from sitting in the warm water. You chew slowly, the flavors blending in a way that makes this small ritual feel even more complete. The minutes stretch out comfortably as you sit there. You don't count them. You simply feel them passing in the steady cooling of the tea, the gradual easing of heat from the mug into your hands, the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. The world outside the windowless walls of this kitchen seems farther away with each swallow, like something seen from a gently increasing distance. By the time your mug is nearly empty, the tea has cooled to a gentle warmth, no longer sending up visible steam. You tip the cup carefully to catch the last swallow, noticing the faint clink of the spoon against the ceramic as it shifts slightly on the saucer. Your hands stay around the mug even after the tea is gone, holding onto the residual heat as long as they can. You breathe in once more, filling your chest with the mingled scents of chamomile, apple, and the clean, faintly soapy smell of the kitchen. On the exhale, your body feels heavier in the chair, pleasantly weighted, as if the warmth has settled into your muscles and decided to stay. No one suggests getting up right away. There is still time to sit with empty mugs that are not quite cold yet, time to listen to the hums and small ticks of this back room, time to let the last of the day's busyness dissolve in the quiet space between you and your friend, while the snow continues its slow, patient work outside. Here, in this modest kitchen behind the bookshop, with warm tea inside you and the echo of the micro-task trailing off like a fading note, the night feels less like something you're moving through and more like a place you can rest within. You sit with your hands still wrapped around the cooling mug, elbows resting lightly on the table. The kitchen feels even quieter now that the tea is almost gone, as if the room has exhaled along with you. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant murmur of the heater, the faint tick of something in the wall, all of it blends into a soft background that doesn't ask anything of you. Your friend cradles their own cup, thumb moving slowly back and forth along the rim. When they speak, their voice has dropped into that low, late-hour register people use without thinking, as though the night itself were listening and they don't want to disturb it. "Tired?" they ask, barely above a whisper. You nod with a small half-smile, eyes dropping to the swirl of tea at the bottom of your mug. The faint ring where the liquid has cooled clings to the sides, a thin line of pale gold. You watch a tiny ripple move across the surface as your hand shifts the cup, and you feel the weariness in your arms, not heavy in a difficult way, just present. "It suits you," they say softly. "This kind of tired, the kind where you've finally stopped." You let that thought sit between you for a moment, like another mug on the table. There is truth in it, and your body knows it even more than your mind does. It's the kind of tired that comes not from running, but from finally being able to be still. You feel your shoulders rise with a breath and then fall again, the motion slow and even. When you speak, your voice instinctively matches your friend's. It feels quiet, you murmur, in a way I haven't felt in a while. Your friend's eyes soften. Good. They look at your hands for a moment, then back up. You can stay as long as you like, you know. There's no rush to go anywhere. The words sink in gently, not as a surprise, but as a confirmation of something you were already sensing. Out in the street, the wind nudges snow along the curb, but here, at this small kitchen table, time feels slowed. like the second hand on a clock that has decided to take slightly longer steps. You trace a small circle on the tabletop with one fingertip, following a faint ring worn into the finish. It feels smooth under your skin, the kind of detail that only shows itself when you're moving at this pace. Your mind offers the usual list of things that wait outside this night: messages, responsibilities, lists, but they seem far away. Dim shapes on a horizon you can barely see. Your friend breaks the silence again, but only just. You remember the first time you came here this late? You think back, but the memory doesn't form as a full scene yet. It's more like a feeling, the weight of a cold coat, the smell of books and wood, the way the buildings seem to draw you in. You nod slowly. I remember being tired then too, you say, lips barely moving, and surprised it could feel this calm inside, when everything else felt noisy. Your friend's mouth tilts in a quiet smile. This place is good at that. It soaks up the noise. They tap the table lightly with one fingertip. Once, you help too. You bring your own quiet with you, even when you don't think you do. You let their words pass through you like warm air, not arguing with them, not needing to. It feels easier now to accept kindness without immediately pushing it away. The kettle on the stove clicks gently as it cools, metal contracting in the cooling air. A faint ribbon of leftover steam rises from the sink where the used tea bags are waiting to be carried out later. The smells in the room have softened. A trace of chamomile, the lingering sweetness of apple, the clean scent of dish soap from earlier in the day. Your friend studies you for another quiet moment, then asks, even softer, "What does it feel like right now?" Not in words you think you're supposed to say, just in your body. You let your attention travel gradually. You notice the weight of your feet resting on the linoleum, the way your toes press inside your socks. You feel the chair supporting the back of your thighs, the gentle pressure along your spine where it meets the wooden slats. Your hands have stopped gripping the mug and now simply rest around it, fingers relaxed, knuckles smooth. Loose, you say, finally, loose. Like everything has unclenched a little. They nod. That's the way it's meant to be at this hour. A pause settles between you again, but it's not empty. The quiet holds the two of you like a soft blanket. You follow your own breath for a few cycles, feeling how the air moves in and out without effort. Your thoughts slow down enough that there's space between them, little pockets of stillness that feel wider each time. Eventually, your friend glances toward the doorway leading back to the shop. "Want to bring what's left of your tea out to the front room?" they whisper. "You can sit by the window a while, if you'd like. The chairs out there are good for drifting." The idea of drifting appeals to you more than the idea of doing anything else. You nod again, wordless, and lift your mug carefully. There is only a small amount of liquid left, but the ceramic still carries a faint warmth that you welcome in your palms. You both stand slowly, chairs scraping the floor just enough to be heard, then falling silent again. Your friend flicks off the overhead light, leaving the kitchen in a soft, dim glow from a small lamp on the counter. The night seems to fold in a little closer when the brighter light goes out, the world reduced to a few warm circles along your path. In the hallway, your footsteps sound barely at all. The boards beneath the linoleum creak once in a low, familiar protest, then settle. You can hear the shop ahead before you see it. The faint whisper of the stove, the distant ticking of the clock, the almost imaginary hush of books resting together on their shelves. Your friend walks just ahead of you and pushes open the door to the main room. The lamplight from the front spills toward you, gentler than the kitchen's brightness, tinted gold by shades and reflected off the wood. The transition feels like stepping into a softer version of the same night. As you move back into the shop, your mind stays quiet. You're not planning what comes next. You're not measuring how long you've been here or how much time is left. You are simply following the slow suggestion of your friend's presence, the pull of a comfortable chair by the window, and the lingering warmth of chamomile that still rests somewhere in your chest. Your friend gestures toward the pair of seats near the front, close to the glass and the radiator's low hum. "Go on," they say in a near whisper. "I'll blow out a couple of candles and close up the back. You just sit, let the night do its thing." You give them a small nod and turn toward the chairs, feeling the quiet of the room gather gently around you, ready to hold whatever thoughts or memories might drift up as you settle deeper into this soft, unhurried night. The chair near the window receives you as if it has been waiting all evening. The cushion gives under your weight, then holds you, the fabric cool at first, and then slowly warming where it touches the backs of your legs. You set the mug on the small table between the chairs, the last sip of tea glimmering faintly in the lamplight. Outside the glass, the street is hushed under fresh snow. Street lamps shine halos into the drifting flakes, each circle of light a little island in the dusk. The bridge you crossed earlier is barely visible now, its railing softened by white, the river below a darker band moving quietly through the night. The world feels thick with stillness, the kind that arrives only on certain winter evenings. Beside you, the radiator gives a gentle sigh as it adjusts its work, followed by a soft, steady hiss that blends with the muffled sounds from outside. The window panes hold a thin crust of frost along their edges, delicate patterns catching the glow from a nearby lamp. You can't hear any individual footsteps or distant engines, only a low, layered hush snow, river, wind, all folded together into one sound. When you lean back, your gaze drifts up and finds the framed family photograph hanging on the wall behind the chairs. You saw it earlier, in passing, but now there's time to really look. The frame sits close to the edge of the lamplight's reach, the glass catching just enough brightness to reveal the shapes within. The group in the picture stands in front of the same building you're in now, though the season in the image is different. No snow, just bare branches and a bright, cloudless sky. The shop's wooden sign looks a little newer there, the paint less faded. The people are varied in age, an older pair in the center, younger adults on either side, and a child perched on the front steps, mid-laugh, hair tousled by some unseen breeze. You notice small details as you study it. The way one hand rests lightly on another's shoulder, the tilt of a head that suggests a shared joke, the comfortable distance and closeness arranged in the group, like the spacing of books on a well-loved shelf. The colors have softened over time, but the feeling in the image is clear, a moment when everyone belonged exactly where they were standing. Your eyes trace the edges of the frame, following the gentle wear at the corners where fingers must have held it once, arranging it on this wall. You imagine the texture smooth wood, a slight ridge at the seam, the cool firmness of glass under your palm. Without realizing it, you let your thoughts slide back to the first time you saw this picture. It comes to you as a quiet memory of standing in this same spot on another winter night. Snow was new then too, though perhaps not as deep. You remember your friend pausing beside you, mug in hand and nodding toward the photograph. "That was a good day," they had said, voice warm. "First day we had the shop fully ours. Everyone insisted on being in the picture, even the little one, who mostly wanted to chase leaves. You hadn't asked many questions then, just listened to the satisfaction in their tone. But the image had stayed with you, the idea of this place at its beginning, full of boxes yet to be unpacked, shelves yet to be filled, and people gathered in front of it with an easy certainty. Tonight, seeing the same photograph again, the memory folds in like a second layer, making the present moment feel deeper, not heavier. Your gaze drifts from the wall to the counter near the middle of the room. The lamp there casts a calm pool of light across the wood, and in its center rests the antique fountain pen, just where you left it in your thoughts earlier. The notebook beside it lies open, a page half filled with neat lines of writing, small notes, perhaps, or a record of the day's arrivals. In the quiet, you remember another evening when the pen was in motion instead of resting. You had stood at this very counter, gloves tucked into your pockets, while your friend reached for it with an easy familiarity. "Sign here?" they had asked, sliding the notebook toward you. "Just so I remember you were actually real and not some very kind imagination of mine." You'd laughed softly at that, then taken the pen. It had surprised you with its weight heavier than a regular pen, balanced so that it seemed to settle into the crook of your fingers on its own. The metal near the nib had been cool, the body smooth where countless hands had held it. As you wrote your name, the ink flowed in a gentle, even line, dark against the page, the nib gliding with a softness you hadn't expected. The memory of that sensation comes back to you now almost as vividly as the moment itself. The slight resistance of the paper, the faint scratch when you paused on a letter, the way your hand adjusted instinctively to the tool. It had been a small act, but it made you feel, for a heartbeat, woven into the history of this place, a name among others in a book that lived behind the counter. Tonight, the pen is still. The lamplight finds the subtle curve of its barrel, the worn trim near the cap, the way it rests on a narrow strip of fabric to keep it from rolling. Somehow, its stillness feels like part of the quiet that fills the room. It lies ready for the next name, the next note, the next small line in the life of the shop. You feel the weight of these two objects, the photograph on the wall, the pen on the counter, not as burdens, but as anchors, gentle ones. They tie this night to others without pulling you away from the present. They remind you that this room has seen many evenings like this. Snow outside, warmth within, someone sitting by the window with a hot drink cradled in their hands. Your friend moves softly in the distance, blowing out a small candle near the back, the tiny sound of breath carrying faintly to where you sit. A moment later, they appear at the edge of your vision, walking toward the front with unhurried steps. Their gaze follows yours for a moment, landing on the photograph, then on the pen. "They've been there a long time," they say quietly, almost as if thinking aloud. "Feels strange when I move them to dust." You smile, speaking just as softly. "Do you put them back exactly the same way?" "Almost," they reply, a small warmth in their tone. "Sometimes the frame ends up a little crooked. Sometimes the pen is an inch to the left. It's never quite identical." You look again. Maybe the frame does tilt just a fraction more than it used to. Maybe the pen lies a little closer to the edge of the notebook tonight. The changes are so slight that you wouldn't notice them unless you were already very still, very present. It keeps the place feeling alive. Your friend adds, after a quiet beat. Like it's always the same, but also always here, now. You let the idea sink in. The photograph holds a moment from the past, but the angle of its frame belongs to tonight. The pen carries traces of all the words it has written, yet the way it catches the lamplight in this exact second is completely new. The memory of using it before and seeing that picture on evenings gone by doesn't pull you backward. It makes this present night feel more settled, more layered. Your eyes return to the window. Outside, the river moves darkly under its blanket of cold air, unseen but unmistakable. A plow passes slowly over the bridge, its blade sending a soft, steady spray of snow to either side. The sound is muted by the glass and the thickening drifts, a low, distant scrape that fades almost as soon as it arrives. Inside, the room holds steady. The framed family photograph watches over the chairs by the window. The antique fountain pen rests beside its open notebook. Your empty mug waits on the small table, a faint circle left where the warmth of the tea once touched the wood. Your friend settles into the other chair, their presence a calm shape at the edge of your vision. You take a long, easy breath, feeling the way the air fills your chest and then leaves again, unhurried. The anchors of this place, the objects, the memories, the sounds, do not tug or weigh. They simply hold you in a gentle way, like the building itself holds the warmth of the stove and the hush of the snow-muffled street. In this slow, layered quiet, you feel the night deepening around you, not closing in, but wrapping you more completely, as if to say, you are here, you are held, and for now, there is nothing you need to be except exactly where you are. You sit in the chair by the window for a while longer, watching the snow drift through the cone of light from the nearest street lamp. The world outside has gone even quieter, the town wrapped in its own deep breath. Inside, the soft hums and ticks of the building feel steady and familiar. Your empty mug rests on the little table at your elbow, ring of warmth gone but its faint outline still visible on the wood. Your friend shifts in the other chair and glances toward the clock on the wall. The movement is unhurried, like everything else tonight. We should probably start closing up, they say in a low voice, almost as if they're sharing a secret with you. Gently, though. No need to chase the night away. There's a small smile at the corner of their mouth, and you find yourself answering with one of your own. You nod, feeling the weight of the evening inside your limbs in a pleasant way, not heavy with effort, but softened by warmth and quiet. You reach for your mug and stand slowly, joints moving without complaint. The room seems to move with you, shadows shifting as you straighten. The lamplight pools on the rug, on the window frame, on the shelf of local books nearby. The framed family photograph on the wall watches calmly, its glass catching a hint of glow. Your friend rises as well, stretching gently before slipping past you toward the front door. They turn the small hanging sign in the window from its welcoming side to the other, the one that lets anyone still outside know that the shop is closed for the night. The motion is small, barely audible, but you can sense the shift it represents. The public part of the day is done. Now the room belongs to the quiet. You carry your mug through the aisles, feet silent on the boards. As you pass the shelf you alphabetized earlier, your hand pauses of its own accord. You let your fingertips drift along the neatly ordered spines, feeling the subtle differences as you move from one book to the next. The row stands in quiet, simple alignment, each title in its place. Looks good, your friend murmurs from a few steps behind you, voice threaded with genuine appreciation. Thank you. You don't answer out loud, but something in your chest gives a small, contented nod. The little task is complete. The shelf can rest now, the same way your body is beginning to. In the back corner, a throw blanket hangs over the arm of a chair, its edge slipping a little toward the floor. You pause to lift it and fold it more carefully, smoothing the fabric with your hands before draping it back into place. The motion feels almost ceremonial, a gentle acknowledgement that the day's use is over and the chair can sleep too. At the front counter, a small stack of bookmarks has drifted slightly out of line. You set your mug down for a moment and use both hands to align them, edges neat, corners squared. The antique fountain pen still rests beside the open notebook, its barrel catching a slim ribbon of lamplight. You don't pick it up this time. It has already done enough work. It can simply be part of the still life of this late hour. Your friend moves through the room in their own rhythm, mirroring your quiet tidying. They straighten a flyer on the bulletin board, tuck a stray slip of paper into the drawer beneath the register, pull a curtain a little closer across one of the side windows. Each motion is small and unhurried, nothing that needs to be done quickly. One by one, the brightest lights grow softer. Your friend turns down a switch near the door, and the overhead fixtures dim until they're barely glowing, leaving most of the illumination to the lamps scattered around the room. The corners deepen into gentle shadow. The light that remains seems warmer, thicker, like the last glow from a fire that has mostly burned down. You take your mug back to the kitchen, rinsing it under a stream of comfortably warm water. The sound of it splashing in the sink is surprisingly loud in the hush, but it fades quickly, becoming just another layer in the night. You place the cup upside down on the drying rack beside your friend's, two rounded shapes resting side by side, gleaming faintly in the dim light. On your way back to the front, you flick off the small counter lamp in the kitchen, leaving only a soft nightlight near the doorway. The hallway narrows, lit mostly by the glow from the shop ahead. As you step out into the main room again, the difference in brightness slows you naturally, inviting a quieter pace. Now only a handful of lamps remain lit. One near the front window, one by the stove, one on the counter. The framed photograph above the reading chairs looks softer, its colors dimmed to something closer to memory than to print. The pen's reflection in the counter lamp has shrunk to a single point. The rest of the room is layers of shadow and faint outlines, shelves, chairs, tables, all settled in place. Your friend joins you near the center, hands in their pockets, shoulders relaxed. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. You both simply stand there, turning in a slow circle to take in the quiet. The stove offers an occasional tick, the building answers with a faint creak, and somewhere beneath it all runs the low, steady murmur of the river outside. "It's good, isn't it?" your friend whispers, "when it gets this quiet?" You nod, throat feeling a little too full for words. Instead, you let your gratitude move outward in other ways, in the way you look at the shelves, at the worn rug, at the chairs that have held so many people. You feel thankful for the stove's steady heat, for the windows holding back the cold, for the books resting patiently in their rows. For this small building, in this small town, keeping a warm pocket of light in the middle of winter. You rest a palm briefly on the nearest shelf, fingers spread against the wood. It feels like a small bow, a silent thank you offered to the space itself. In your mind, it's as if the room answers, not in words, but in the way the air seems to soften around you, in the way the hush grows even more tender. Your friend touches your arm lightly, drawing your attention back. "Come on," they murmur. "Let's go upstairs. The bed's turned down already. We can leave the stove to do the last bit of work down here." You glance back once more as you follow them toward the rear of the shop. The lamps pool their last light across the floor. The photograph keeps its gentle watch by the window. The pen rests beside its notebook. The sign in the door quietly says that the shop is closed, but what you feel instead is that it is safe, settled, and ready to sleep. You step through the doorway to the back, the main room easing out of sight behind you. As your friend switches off the remaining lamps, the glow shrinks to faint outlines, then to memory, leaving only the softest suggestion of light trailing after you up the stairs. The staircase rises along the back wall, its steps worn into shallow curves by many years of feet making this climb at the end of the day. You put a hand on the banister as you follow your friend upward, fingers closing around smooth wood. It is warm from earlier use, maybe from their touch just moments ago. Your socked feet move carefully from tread to tread, the boards under each one offering a small, familiar creak. The sounds are gentle, muffled by the thick winter air and the layers of the building. The further you climb from the stove, the cooler the air becomes, but only slightly. The warmth still reaches up here, just calmer, thinner at the edges. At the top of the stairs, a short hallway opens into a small living space. A lamp on a narrow table glows with a low, amber light, leaving much of the room in a comfortable dimness. The ceilings slope a little beneath the roofline, making the space feel tucked in, like a nest. Your friend gestures softly toward a door on the left. "That one's yours tonight," they say, keeping their voice just above a whisper. "Bathroom's right across the hall. Take your time." You nod, offering a quiet thank you that feels almost too loud in this hushed, intimate space. In the bedroom, the light from a bedside lamp spreads across a neatly made bed. The quilt on top is patterned in soft, worn colors, faded blues, muted reds, cream squares that have been washed enough times to feel like cloth memory. The edges drape over the sides like the corners of a comforting cloud. You set your bag down on a chair near the wall, the fabric landing with a small, padded sound. Your coat joins it, folded over the back, the bulk of it slipping away from your shoulders and leaving you lighter. The air in the room is cool enough to feel clean, but the radiator beneath the single window clicks and hums quietly, making sure the chill never quite settles. For a moment, you simply stand beside the bed, letting your body take in this new, smaller, quiet. Downstairs, the stove and the shelves and the counters are all settling into their nightly rest. Up here, the space is already inclined towards sleep, as if it has been waiting all evening for you to arrive. You gather the clothes, you'll sleep in soft fabric that has lost any stiffness from newness long ago, and carry them with you across the hall. The bathroom is compact and simple, lit by a gentle overhead fixture and a small light over the mirror. Cool tile meets your feet as you step inside, the faint chill balancing the warmth that still lingers in your chest from the tea. You run the water in the sink, letting it warm, then hold your hands beneath the flow. The heat creeps slowly into your fingers. You splash your face, feeling the contrast of warmth and the cool air that meets the droplets on your skin. A soft towel waits on the rack, its cotton worn to the kind of smoothness that only comes with time. You press it gently to your cheeks, your forehead, the back of your neck, taking your time with each motion as if every touch were part of a slow, closing book. Brushing your teeth becomes its own small ritual. The simple, familiar movements ask nothing new from you. The quiet rasp of bristles, the taste of fresh mint, the sound of the tap running briefly, then shutting off again, it all forms a pattern your mind can rest inside. You don't need to decide anything here. You just follow the sequence, one gentle step at a time. When you're done, you switch off the bright bathroom light and pause to let your eyes adjust. The hallway is dim now, lit only by the lamp on the small table and the glow from your bedroom. Your friend passes by carrying a folded blanket, offering a soft good night and a smile that says more than the word does. "Sleep well," they murmur. "The radiator's steady, but if it feels too warm, you can crack the window just a bit. The air's cold, but it's clean." You nod, feeling the kindness in the option. "You too," you reply, your own voice low and slow, like it has learned the cadence of the building. Back in the bedroom, you close the door most of the way, leaving it open just a narrow crack so the faint sounds of the hallway can still reach you. You change into your sleep clothes, each layer of day's fabric giving way to something softer, looser, lighter. Your folded clothes end up in a neat stack on the chair, ready for morning without needing anything more from you tonight. You sit on the edge of the bed and reach for the window shade. The glass on the other side holds the reflection of the room for a moment, the lamp, the quilt, your own outline before you lift the shade partway to look out. Snow clings to the corners of the pane, feathered and delicate. Beyond it, the town lies in soft darkness, street lamps throwing gentle halos onto the white. You unlatch the window just enough to open it a fraction, no more than the width of your finger. A thin ribbon of cold air slips in, brushing your face, carrying with it the faint scent of snow and night river. The radiator continues its low, steady work beneath the sill, its warmth meeting the chill in a quiet, balanced truce. You feel both cool against your cheeks, warmth against your legs, and together they make the room feel fresh and safe at once. You close the shade again, leaving just the suggestion of light outlining its edges. The lamp by the bed glows patiently, waiting for its own rest. Turning back the covers feels like opening the final chapter of the night. The top quilt folds down with a gentle sigh, the sheet beneath cool and smooth against your fingertips. You slip between them slowly, lifting your legs and sliding your feet across the cotton. The fabric welcomes your warmth, gathering it close. The weight of the blankets settles over you, firm enough to feel held, light enough that you can breathe easily. Your head finds the pillow, which yields in all the right places. The pillowcase has that faint, comforting scent of clean fabric and a hint of the day's warmth. You adjust once, then again, until the shape fits the curve of your neck and the base of your skull perfectly. The room around you is very quiet now. You can hear the radiator's gentle ticking and the low, constant hum of pipes moving warmth through the walls. From far below, barely reaching this floor, comes the softest hint of the stove's presence and the murmur of the river outside. Every sound is softened, as if wrapped in wool. You reach for the lamp switch without lifting your head, fingers finding it by memory more than sight. With a small click, the room settles into darkness, not complete. The faint light from the hallway filters in through the crack in the door. A dim glow traces the outline of the window shade and the corner of the table by your bed. It's enough to keep the room from feeling closed off, while still inviting your eyes to drift shut. You place one hand lightly on your chest, feeling the slow rise and fall beneath your palm. Your other hand rests beside you on the quilt, fingers relaxed, no longer busy with pages or mugs or shelves. You follow the movement of your breath, noticing how gently it comes and goes now. In through your nose, cool air brushing the back of your throat. Out again, a little warmer, flowing past your lips or nostrils without effort. Downstairs, the bookshop is resting the shelves in order, the counters clear, the framed photograph, and the pen and the chairs, all quietly holding their places until morning. Up here, you are doing the same, settling into your own stillness, letting the day's small tasks and thoughts drift farther away with each exhale. The thin line of cold air from the cracked window meets the layered warmth of the blankets in a soft balance across your skin. Your feet find a comfortable place and stay there. Your shoulders melt into the mattress. Even the small muscles along your jaw loosen, your tongue resting quietly in your mouth. You find yourself hovering at the edge of sleep, that gentle border where thoughts thin out into impressions, the memory of lamplight on the counter, the sound of your friend's voice saying, "You can stay as long as you like," the image of snow falling past the street lamp outside. None of these ask to be examined. They just drift through, like snowflakes seen from a warm room. Your breath continues its slow work. In and out. In and out. The building breathes with you. The town seems to breathe with you too. Before long, the sense of you and room and night all feel like parts of the same quiet, steady thing. Wrapped in quilts, held by the soft weight of sleep-ready air, with the snow-muffled streets resting just beyond the glass, you let yourself release the last of the day. There is nowhere else you need to be. The warmth of the bookshop, the kindness of your old friend, the deep New England winter night, all of it gathers close as you drift, unhurried, toward the gentle dark of rest. You lie very still beneath the quilt, eyes half closed, feeling the way the mattress cups your body. The air in the room is a gentle mixture of cool and warm, the faint thread of night slipping in through the narrow crack in the window, and the steady, quiet heat rising from the radiator below. Your breath moves through this meeting of temperatures, in and out, slow and even. With each exhale, the day loosens a little more. Thoughts that once felt sharp now soften into round edges. What remains is not so much memory as impression, drifting through you like slow flakes of snow. You sense the town around you without needing to see it. Down the hill, the river moves beneath its light skin of ice, dark water sliding past rounded stones and the old bridge. The bridge's railings wear a thick quilt of snow now, the iron softened into white curves. Street lamps cast pale halos along the road, their light falling onto empty sidewalks and the quiet fronts of brick buildings. In your mind's eye, you trace the line of the main street, the way it bends gently past the mill, past houses with clapboard siding and front steps brushed clean earlier in the evening. Porches hold their own small pools of light, some with a pair of boots left by the door, some with a chair sitting empty, snow piling on its seat. Chimneys send up thin threads of smoke that fade quickly into the cold air, leaving behind only the suggestion of warmth inside. You drift a little farther inward, toward the building you know best tonight. The bookshop below you is dark now, but it is a friendly darkness, layered with familiar shapes. Shelves rise in soft silhouettes from the floor, rows of spines turned into a single shadowed band. The rug near the front door lies quiet, its pattern hidden until morning, its fibers still remembering the weight of your feet. The stove has settled, but a low, ember-like warmth lingers in its metal, giving off tiny ticks now and then, like the last notes of a finished song. By the front window, the pair of chairs face the glass, empty now, their cushions slightly indented. Between them, on the wall above, hangs the framed family photograph. In the dimness, the colors have almost disappeared, leaving the light and dark shapes of faces and clothing. A faint gleam from a street lamp outside touches one corner of the glass, a drifting band of brightness that shifts when the wind nudges the bare branches beyond the window. The photograph looks different at this hour than it did before. Earlier, it showed clear smiles, hands on shoulders, the front of the shop in another season. Now it feels more like a quiet presence, a memory of beginnings that has settled into its place, comfortable and sure. It doesn't need to shine. It simply rests there, keeping its gentle watch over the chairs and the night. Across the room, the counter holds its own small stillness. The notebook that lay open earlier is closed now, its cover smooth and patient. Beside it, the antique fountain pen lies where it always does, only now it is fully at rest. The cap is snug over the nib, the ink inside still, cool, unhurried. Earlier in the evening, you remembered the way it felt in your hand, the weight of it, the steady line it drew as you wrote your name. That movement is over for the day, but something of it remains, a sense that the pen has done enough and can lie quiet until morning. In the mild glow from the counter lamp, which is turned low but not completely off, the metal trim catches just the softest hint of light, like a closed eye reflecting a candle. The photograph by the window and the pen by the notebook seem to share an understanding now. One holds warm moments from long ago. The other has traced smaller notes across more recent pages. Tonight they are companions in stillness, anchors gently set into the quiet of the shop, needing nothing, offering only a sense that this place has a history, a present, and, gently, a tomorrow. Your awareness rises again through the floorboards, through the beams and the old joists. The wood that lines the ceilings and walls carries the day's warmth upward, releasing it in slow, invisible breaths. The staircase remembers each footstep, yours and your friends, and then lets those echoes go. On the landing, the small table lamp still glows faintly, its light reaching only as far as the edges of the hall, leaving the rest to shadows. Back in your room, the quilt presses softly against your legs and chest. The cool edge of the sheet has long since warmed where your skin touches it. The pillow cradles your head, holding the shape of it as if it has always known where you would lie. The narrow crack in the window admits a ribbon of air that carries the faintest scent of snow and distant water. It brushes your cheek with a light, clean touch before it mingles with the warmth trapped beneath the covers. Outside, the town's small sounds continue their slow work, a plow rumbling far away, the soft brush of snow slipping from a branch, the tiniest shift of ice along the river's edge. Inside, your body listens to different sounds now, the hush in your ears, the quiet drum of your heartbeat easing into a slower rhythm, the whisper of breath moving in and out. You move gently through these scenes without effort, river and bridge, houses and chimneys, shelves and stove, photograph and pen, hallway, bed. Each image rises for a moment and then softens, like words spoken in a low tone and then allowed to fade. The anchors of this night, the small details that met you when you arrived and walked with you through the hours, have settled into place. The photograph rests above the chairs. The pen lies by its notebook. The alphabetized shelf waits patiently downstairs. The chamomile and apple linger only as a trace of sweetness in your memory and a deeper calm in your chest. You lie between all of these gentle points, held in the middle of them, as the winter night deepens around the building and the building gathers itself close around you. Each breath feels like another slow page turning, quieter and quieter, as the story of the day draws toward its last, quiet lines. You float on the edge of sleep now, the line between waking and dreaming almost gone. The room has grown even more hushed, as if it were listening to your breathing and choosing to follow its slow, steady pace. The quilt is a familiar weight across your body, warm and sure. The pillow supports the curve of your neck, holding you just where you need to be. The faint thread of cold air from the cracked window has softened, or perhaps you have grown so used to it that it feels like part of the blanket, cool at the edges, warm in the center. Your thoughts are no longer sentences, only gentle currents. a flash of lamplight on glass, the feel of a ceramic mug in your hands, the sense of your friend's presence somewhere nearby, already resting in their own quiet room. The bookshop below, dark and peaceful, every shelf and chair and small object settled for the night. You notice how easy it is to breathe here, in and out, in and out. Each inhale fills you with the faint sense of clean fabric and winter air. Each exhale carries away the last remaining fragments of the day. There is nothing you need to do with your breath. It knows the way on its own. Gratitude moves through you without needing words. Gratitude for the warmth of this bed, for the soft glow that still lingers beyond the door, for the small town resting under snow, for the kind hands that welcomed you, the quiet tasks that eased your mind, the gentle rituals that warmed your body. Your limbs feel heavier now, in a tender, pleasant way, as if they are sinking into something safe and deep. Fingers loose, jaw easy, eyes resting behind closed lids. You don't try to fall asleep. You simply allow yourself to be as still as the room around you. The night holds you. The old building holds you. Your own steady breath holds you. In the quiet of this late winter hour, wrapped in warmth while the snow-muffled streets lie beyond the glass, you let the last of your awareness loosen and drift, like a slow, soft exhale that never needs to be drawn back in.